Hi, my name's Sam. Welcome to Green Theory. Are seafoods really as sustainable as we think? You may have heard the hype in recent years over pescatarianism, which is the choice to give up meat of land animals in the interest of health and sustainability. Or if you want to think about it the other way, vegetarians who are willing to eat fish. I recently made the decision to choose more conscious options when shopping for food, but when I started doing research, everything wasn't as clear as I'd hoped. In today's world, it can feel impossible to unwind what's right and wrong in terms of ethical consumerism and which decisions really matter when we choose our food. Let's take a look. So, just to establish the ground rules, let's say that sustainability could be defined as the concept of using the global ecosystem in a way that will allow life as we know it on Earth to last, well, indefinitely. This entails taking care of our food sources and systems like oceans, rivers, land, and soil, limiting creation of stuff that can't break down when left alone, like plastic, and relying on energy sources which won't run out, like solar, wind, and geothermal energy, rather than fossil fuels like oil and coal. Also, as far as food is concerned, vegetables are widely believed to have the smallest carbon footprint out of food products, followed by fish, then land animal products. I always really liked this graph, which visualizes the carbon footprint in terms of car miles. Carbon footprint being the amount, either specifically or relatively, of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide emitted to create that product. It's typically hard to imagine what carbon impact really means, so it's helpful for me to see it this way. I was recently inspired to review the state of seafood in our world after watching Seaspiracy and a slew of other ocean-related documentaries on Netflix. Give it a watch for yourself, but take it with a grain of salt. There were some exaggerations and edits made to alter the story, apparently, and the documentary ended up in the hot seat for a while. This controversy further piqued my interest. Of course, every industry has its dirty secrets, but why can't we even keep documentaries straight? Allow me to quickly tell you about the Marine Stewardship Council and its sustainability certification. The Marine Stewardship Council, or MSC, is an international nonprofit organization which operates alongside fisheries, suppliers, and retailers across the world to set standards of reduced environmental impact. They award an official certification to fisheries for wild seafoods which are keeping up with very high predetermined standards. The hard work they're putting in only matters if we use it, though. You can often find the MSC certification label on the back of packaged seafood, which lets you know that this food is clean to eat and has been harvested from the wild in a way that won't negatively impact the future of that fishery's populations, or endanger other species with its bycatch. Bycatch, by the way, is the general term for any living things caught during fishing for some other desired species. It can be very dangerous because creatures can be damaged by the fishing equipment itself, or suffer wounds or exposure to intense conditions which can cause them to die, even after they've been thrown back in the water. I've done some legwork over the past few months. Here are some of my findings for what you can look for when you're craving some of your favorite seafood snacks. Scallops, my favorite. If you've never tried these sweet and savory little morsels, you are definitely missing out. Scallops are widely considered to be sustainable as they are small filter feeders, which means that they require almost no resources or space to raise. They can be cultivated in a variety of ways, from long chains of baskets to suspended nets, nets on the ground, or even ropes. Almost any kind of scallop is widely considered sustainable, but leading the pack would have to be the off-bottom culture and the bottom culture bay scallops, which use suspension nets, or the bottom dredging when it's sustainably sourced. Dredging involves large nets being towed behind a boat, which scrape along the seafloor and lift sea life into the captivity of the net. Basically, the dredging location matters a lot, though. Habitats which are disturbed more regularly, such as by stronger currents brushing across the ocean floor, suffer far less from the dredging damages than other, more fragile ecosystems. There are restricted areas where it's illegal to scallop, but that doesn't stop some people, which we call poachers. Scotland, for example, has had endless issues keeping scalloping poachers out of their waters, where the ocean floor ecosystem is both vulnerable and damaged by past dredging. Canadian and American scallops, which are MSC certified, are a safe bet if you're checking labels. You're going to want to steer clear of the larger cousin, the sea scallop, and dredge scallops without a sustainability seal if you want to avoid doing more damage than necessary with your scallop purchase. When it comes to mussels, they're kind of the poster child for sustainable food. Pretty much any mussel has been raised with little input and a small environmental impact, so you can rest easy. As filter feeders, they're once again grown in suspended situations on ropes or in nets, and they don't require much maintenance to raise. Even the dredged wild mussels are considered to be low impact, but the farmed ones edge them out just barely in the sustainability race in the interest of wild population numbers. Shrimp. Shrimp is grown all over the world in all different sizes and harvested in a ton of different ways, which has left open huge opportunities for foul play in the shrimping business. Now, I took the time to do a little market research by checking the seafood stock of several wholesale and grocery locations around where I live, and watch out for frozen Asian farmed shrimps. I happen to be in Florida, so I can't speak much for many other locations, but they seem to be everywhere, often originating in Vietnam, Indonesia, and India. They suffer from a lot of unregulated chemical runoff and waste discharge into water systems, and they rely entirely on wild brood, meaning that the young are pulled from wild populations in mass. Many of these programs are improving, but they still have a long way to go. The American farm shrimps and other certified farm shrimps that you can find are rare, but are sometimes raised more responsibly and are worth supporting. Argentinian red shrimp from South America is known to have a dangerous bycatch that is harming and killing animals other than shrimp, such as skates, finned fishes, and eels. Shrimp from the Gulf of Mexico is known to be some of the worst on account of the very negative bycatch, like sea turtles. Most often out of Mexican fisheries, bottom trawlers and skimmers are the fishing method which cause the problems. Bottom trawlers are essentially a single large net dragged along the bottom behind a fishing boat to gather shrimp, while the skimmers' nets are held up higher and are on either side of the boat. Florida is the only fishery to have dodged this pitfall, having turtle excluders to spare them. If you're buying shrimp, look for Canadian and American shrimp or prawns of any kind. Keep your location in mind when you're shopping. I'm in Florida, so I might look for the turtle-free Gulf of Mexico shrimp, but if you live in the Northeast, get the Canadian shrimp from your local fishmonger. Outside of that, the MSC has certified a myriad of shrimp fisheries around the world, even in some of these pre-described danger zones, so look out for that label. And when you can't look at a label, like in a restaurant, it might be better to just skip the shrimp altogether. Lobster. If you've had the luxury of dining on lobster, you know it's a very tasty treat, but be wary, the environmental politics have been turbulent. In 2018, the Bahamas spiny lobster fishery became the first ever MSC certified fishery in the Caribbean. They use lobster hotels, or casitas, which attract the lobsters without trapping them or other sea creatures. After they've moved in, fishermen can go down and harvest the lobsters. Also look for red rock lobster from Baja California and MSC certified American lobsters from the Northwest Atlantic Canadian fisheries. Watch out for the Maine American lobsters unless they're a local delicacy for you, as it is always a good idea to prioritize eating locally for sustainability. They unfortunately lost their certification just this past year in 2020 over disputes over effects on right whales, which have been migrating into the area recently due to probably climate change. Most of the other American lobster fisheries have a long way to go before certification due to trap loss, which can create endless fish kills when left abandoned. This one is another winner. I know these past few have been some pretty grim reviews of the fisheries we are forced to buy from, but this is another slam dunk. Oysters are super easy to grow and maintain, just like mussels, and are even better farmed. With a ton of varieties available all around the world, they also advertise an awesome set of environmental benefits for shore ecosystems such as filter feeding to improve water quality, breaking storm surge to prevent damage to the shoreline, and creating a structural habitat for other species. Some communities will encourage or pay you to raise oysters along your waterfront property just because of the erosion prevention they offer. The only fishery to watch out for is New York, where an unsustainable amount of harvesting has drained the ecosystem over the past few decades of these important water cleaning bivalves. Also, have you eaten a raw oyster before? I've never actually had one raw, but apparently they're to die for. While doing research, some of these pictures tempted me to get in on what is sure to be one interesting food experience. Clams and cockles, on the other hand, are humble foods. These simple, small morsels of meat offer a great addition to soups and stews where they can ride the flavor of vegetables and spices. Rounding out our bivalves for being super sustainable, they are often picked from the wild by hand, using hand rakes, and with small dredges. Just watch out for international varieties when you can. Best to cut down on your food miles if you have the choice. Crab. Ah, crab. Delicious classic American fare. Whether it be Florida blue crab, Baltimore crab cakes, or Alaskan king crab, the United States is no stranger to some amazing, fresh, and sustainable crab options. Look for any type of American caught king, stone, snow, or blue crab so long as it's not from crab pots. Now, using crab traps over crab pots is an important distinction because one is very likely to cause ghost fishing if lost and the other is not. Crab traps are often used recreationally by smaller home crabbers, and the contraption is left open with bait as it collects crabs before being lifted, locking in the crabs currently on the trap. They are hoisted to the surface where they can be harvested. Pots have an entrance but no exit for the crabs. They are also baited and passively collect crabs as they are attracted to the food inside. Other animals can be caught in these as well as bycatch. When lost, they can go on to catch more animals, and are baited by the dead ones trapped inside like a never-ending cycle. Watch out for imported and international crabs, Asian, Russian, and again, those pot-caught blue crabs, which have been known to threaten the endangered diamondback terrapin as bycatch. Ghost fishing is the general term for fishing equipment that is lost into the ocean and continues to harm and catch animals as it drifts around or hangs out on the bottom of the seafloor. It's one of the most serious problems plaguing our oceans today, and it's often the reason some fisheries can't get their MSC certification because they're using outdated equipment. I like this image because it demonstrates how even one net can go on to wreak havoc over generations. As you can see, something like a lost cage or fishing net can smother and damage ocean floor ecosystems, catch, harm, and kill free-swimming sea creatures, and move all around the ocean. Designed to withstand the conditions in the salty waters, they aren't likely to break down on their own, and are basically a threat until removed by humans. When I got the idea to make this video, I knew nothing about what sustainable seafood meant, and I feel like I learned a lot. If you learned something about seafood you didn't know before, please share this with a friend, like, or subscribe to show me that you want to see more content like this. You may have noticed that some of your favorite finned entrees didn't appear on the list, and that's because once I started putting this together, I realized there was a lot to cover. So I left this video just for the shellfish, and I'll go ahead and make another one for finned fishes in the future if there's enough interest. Thank you for your time. Make good choices.